Alright Nintendo, so you just released ports of your 3 big arcade hits for your new console. What are you gonna do next? Well, like video game publishers everywhere, you release some versions of non-copyrighted board games. In this case, it's Gomoku Narabe Renju. Gomoku is actually a pretty simple little game that's actually played on a Go board using Go pieces, but it's much simpler than the game Go. The object here is that black and white take turns putting down pieces, and you're going to try to get 5 pieces in a row. The rules are that black goes first. Now there is sort of a catch. It turns out that if black goes first, they can always win. Therefore, this is actually a variation of Gomoku called Renju. This is Gomoku with a few extra rules and restrictions in place that'll prevent whoever goes first from always winning. Gomoku, just like Go, is an old Chinese game, but the name Gomoku is Japanese. It means something like 5 pieces line up. If you're a kid that grew up in the US, you'll probably think this game looks a lot like Connect 4. There's a few different options on this cart. You can play against the computer, you can play against another person. I'm playing against the computer here, and it turns out I'm actually not a very good Gomoku player. It's funny, I would always beat my cousin at Connect 4. Guess the computer's a bit smarter than my cousin. The game does give you little hints, like when the computer's about to get 5 in a row, their pieces will start flashing. Now the first 3 games we saw were all released in the US for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985. But Gomoku Narabe is the first Japan-only title for the Famicom. Obviously, when Nintendo of America was picking out potential releases for US release, they decided to pass this one over. This is something we'll see a lot of in Chrontendo. Certain games will have sort of like a universal appeal like Donkey Kong, and certain games Nintendo decides simply only the Japanese will be interested in playing. Of course, game fans and publishers often disagree as to what games they would like to play, leading to a lot of frustration in the United States and Europe over all the great games released in Japan but not over here. With this one, though, I don't really think that we're missing that much. Sure, this is a fun little game to play, but nothing too spectacular. Released the same day as Gomoku Narabe is Mahjong. Now, if you're like most Westerners, you've probably never actually played the game of Mahjong. You may have played that game that comes on Windows computers, but that's not the actual game of Mahjong. That's just sort of a matching game that uses the Mahjong tiles. It's been released under various names over the years, such as Shanghai or Solitaire Mahjong. Mahjong is sort of like a card game, only instead of being played with cards, it's played with small painted tiles. There are several suites. For example, here you see I have quite a few of the bamboo suite. Other suites have a series of dots on them, or Chinese characters. Now, this is not the first Mahjong video game. Mahjong games were among the very first video games made in Japan. For example, here's Royal Mahjong from Nichibutsu, originally released back in 1981. In real life, Mahjong is normally played with 4 people. Though, since the advent of computer games, a certain special variation on Mahjong has emerged, in which you play one-on-one head-to-head with the computer. Now, the odds are that you probably don't play Mahjong, and I certainly don't play Mahjong. Seems like here in the United States, the only folks who play it are little old Jewish ladies, so I can't really tell you too much about whether this is a good version of the game or not. I suppose it looks decent, but in Asia, Mahjong video games are enormously popular, so it's not too surprising that one of the very first games Nintendo released for the Famicom was in fact a Mahjong game. It certainly paid off for Nintendo. This was one of the biggest selling titles over the entire system's lifespan. And I should point out that over the course of Chrontendo, we'll be seeing many, many more Mahjong games.